that it has an awful lot to do with now the decline of honeybees. That I did a report only 3 or 4 months ago about the new fungus attacking and hurting people in the Northwest. And now we have this fungus that has only existed attacking and killing bats for 4 years. And fungi, once upon a time, were only opportunists.
Linda, another remarkable story. You've heard about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the incredible Steven Spielberg movie. Why did Linda cover it? Well, you'll find out in just a moment. Well, next hour we'll have conversations with Linda, your phone calls, but we've still got another one of her fascinating reports. And Linda, a little over a month ago, we had Richard Dreyfuss on the program, and he's going to be coming in the studios back in L.A. Pretty soon as well. And as you know, starred in Close Encounters
and Jaws.
And Jaws. I mean, both of these great movies, electrifying, weren't they?
Oh, if you think of, at least to me, of some of the greatest films of all time, then Encounters of the Third Kind has to be in the top 10.
Absolutely.
It is a film that I think had a huge impact on everyone, perhaps one of his biggest blockbusters of all time. And 2 British authors, Matthew Alford, who is 32 years old, and Robbie Graham, who is 29, are investigating the concept that the CIA and other American intelligence agencies manipulate Hollywood to produce television and movies that can alter public perceptions the way the CIA wants them and be used to monitor public reactions.
Oh, tell me about this.
Yes, and this is really, truly a fascinating investigation by these 2 guys. Robbie is a full-time doctoral candidate at the University of Bristol, working on a PhD to examine Hollywood's historical representation of UFOs and potential extraterrestrial life. Robbie formerly was associate lecturer in media at Stafford College in Stafford, England. His colleague, Matthew Alford, is a PhD. He earned his doctorate in 2008 from the University of Bath, England, with his PhD thesis entitled A Propaganda Model for Hollywood, Representations of American Foreign Policy in Contemporary Films. Matthew has written for The Guardian, Fortean Times, New Statesman, and BBC Radio, and he has also lectured at the universities of Bath and Bristol. Matthew has a new August 2010 book just released by the UK's Pluto Press entitled Real Power, R-E-E-L Power, Hollywood Cinema and American Supremacy. And I have a hot link in my Earth Files report that I'm talking about right now. You can go to Earth Files. You can click on this title having to do with Spielberg. And there is a hot link to this book, which I, just looking at the quotes on the book and knowing Matt and the work that they've been doing, this has got to be a great read and an important one. And while researching Hollywood history and the background of Steven Spielberg, Matt Alford discovered a 1978 interview with film director Spielberg about his 1977 blockbuster Encounters of the Third Kind. The interview was published in 1978 in an edition of the now out-of-print magazine called Cinema Papers. And at Earth Files, I have the original published interview in which the reporter asks Steven Spielberg, quote, "At any point during the setting up of the film, meaning Encounters, were you more in doubt than not?" And here is Spielberg's reply. Quote, "I really found my faith when I heard that the government was opposed to the film. If NASA took the time to write me a 20-page letter, then I knew there must be something happening. I had wanted cooperation from them, but when they read the script, they got very angry and felt that it was a film that would be dangerous. I think they mainly wrote the letter because," and he's referencing Jaws, one of his previous big films, convinced so many people around the world that there were sharks in toilets and bathtubs, not just in the oceans and rivers. They were afraid the same kind of epidemic would happen with UFOs, close quote. Is that not powerful insight into Steven Spielberg that you've never heard this before?
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, in 2010, Robbie Graham and Matthew Alford co-wrote an article entitled Spielberg's UFO Secrets, discussing the Cinema Papers interview reference to the 20-page NASA letter trying to keep Spielberg from doing his 1977 feature film Encounters of the Third Kind. Here now is Robbie Graham from Bristol, England.
Here's my position on Spielberg. He's good friends with Bill Clinton. He's spoken with Carter, Reagan, and other presidents. He's received awards from the Department of Defense. He's very close to the Washington Power Elite. I think it would be quite amazing, given Spielberg's overt interest in the phenomenon, if Spielberg had not asked certain people in the know about the phenomenon and had not received certain answers. Therefore, I think it's plausible that Spielberg has, over the years, been privy to some information through unofficial channels relating to UFOs. I think that Spielberg very likely would have been told certain things by Bill Clinton, off the record, obviously. I think that Spielberg's probably spoken to a number of people in the loop, shall we say, and that's why he continues to make so many films about UFOs and aliens.
And Robbie, do you think it is feasible that the very first insight that Steven Spielberg had, that he was treading on dangerous ground, was in fact the alleged 20-page letter from NASA when he was working on the script for Encounters, which did not come out till November of 1977. So he was working on the script before then, and the script would have come before production. And it means, as you suggested, if he had made an inquiry out of innocence to NASA and to the Defense Department for help in doing his own written script for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that's what set off the alarm bells and the red flags within our government, then that 20-page letter that allegedly was discussed in the 1978 Cinema Papers journal might have been the very first time that Steven Spielberg was conscious of how much the government really knows and is afraid of the public knowing.
Yeah, I think so, because, that's what Spielberg himself said. He said, quote, if NASA took the time to send me a 20-page letter, then I knew that something must be happening. And he said to Cinema Papers, quote, that's when I found my faith. So he believed in UFOs at that point, and it wasn't until he received that letter that he claims that he found his faith and had his suspicions justified. If there's any truth to the rumor that Spielberg was told by Reagan in 1982 that the phenomenon was real, then of course that would also have spurred him on.
Why do you think that the more that you and others have tried to get Steven Spielberg to go on the record about what has been told to him about the presence of a non-human intelligence on this planet, the more he seems to have retreated and resisted any efforts by people to have him just genuinely talk on the record?
I don't know. I think that it has to do with the people who Spielberg keeps company with. I think he's treading a fine line. In 2005, Spielberg actually stated publicly that he's less confident now than he used to be that we're actually being visited by aliens. He made quite a bizarre statement to the effect that if they were here, we'd be filming them more, people would be seeing them more. But of course, that's not the case at all, and anyone who even loosely follows as the years go by, sightings are increasing, and barely a week goes by now without a video or photograph being shown on local national news networks.
It was as if Spielberg was giving out a now conventional political spin.
Yeah, and I think that may relate to an event in 1999 when Spielberg's name appeared on a leaked list of attendees to the Bilderberg meeting held that year in Portugal. The coveted Bilderberg invite, if you are considered by its members to be a significant mover and shaker, significant influence on the international stage, and also willing to play ball to an extent with the elite. That Spielberg's name was on the list is hugely significant. potential acclimatization program. And for someone who's had an interest in the phenomenon for so many years, it seems strange that he would not stand up and lend his name to the UFO, even though he's been given the opportunity to do so. I find that odd. That implies that he's towing a line somewhere.
And Robbie, if Steven Spielberg has opted for political survival in the current world, what would you speculate is the information that he has been exposed to in his conversations with various political leaders about the presence of a non-human intelligence on this earth?
My feeling is that Spielberg received limited exposure, probably little more than confirmation that, yes, we're being visited by various intelligences, and that, yes, the US government is deeply involved in this. Beyond that, I don't think he would be exposed to much. After all, he's just a film director. He's not got above top secret clearances. He's not part of some special access project somewhere. You know, he's Spielberg at the end of the day, and he likes to talk. You're not going to tell him too much, I don't think. That's not to say he can't keep secrets, but I don't think you're going to tell him too much.
If Winston Churchill, your country's prime minister, in discussions with General Dwight D. Eisenhower from the United States back in approximately 1943 during World War II, if his instant reaction to what they knew about the facts of an interaction between an unidentified flying object and a bomber caused Winston Churchill to say, we must clam this up for 50 years because it would upturn religions. What do you think that policymakers know today in 2010?
I used to think that there is this giant government conspiracy and that there are people within our government and military who do know exactly what's going on, that they have all of the pieces to this gigantic puzzle, that someone knows what's going on, they're just keeping it very secret. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think anyone has all of the pieces to this puzzle. I don't think anyone possibly can even comprehend exactly the true nature of this phenomenon. How can you go public with something that you can't fully comprehend, that you can't even begin to explain or understand? Those question marks alone would be alarming enough to warrant covering something up. Even if people have told Spielberg, really don't know the full extent of what's going on, you know, that's going to be a shock to the system for anyone. It's almost more alarming to think that they don't know what's going on. As far as Spielberg, Hollywood's all about egos. Being privy to the most classified information in the world makes you feel quite special. Spielberg may have been asked informally, when required, produce certain films that have certain ufological content in them. But also, at the same time, I think Spielberg is frustrated. You know, I think Transformers, which Spielberg produced, is an interesting example. During the end of that film, during the end credits, there's a strange interlude during the film's closing credits. The character Sam, who's played by Shia LaBeouf, his parents comment to the camera, if Earth were being visited by aliens, then, quote, the government would let us know this is America. And they go on to say that that's how we know we live in a free land, because there's no secrets.
It's very sarcastic because the filmmakers
exactly
know that we live in a country that lies perpetually, and that Spielberg was basically giving a message or allowing a message to be given at the end of the film.
Yeah, and I think that particular dialogue was there at Spielberg's insistence directly. And in fact, the first name to appear in the credits following the scene is Spielberg's Transformers. It draws heavily on UFO literature. You've got to wonder, is this having an effect on people's perceptions of life out there? What if tomorrow there was some kind of a mass landing? How much of what pops into our heads would be the result of Hollywood filmmakers? And that's quite worrying because most of it is negative and frightening, and not an awful lot of